I will never forget that Saturday morning. A soft, buttery New York sunlight was slicing through the blinds of my small apartment, but inside me, everything was dark, like a storm front rolling in. I was brewing my coffee, inhaling the rich, dark aroma filling the kitchen, when my phone buzzed. It was Emily, my girlfriend. I recognized her voice immediately, soft but taut, like an invisible string pulling the space between us painfully tight. "Michael, we need to pump the brakes a little," she said. "I'm just not ready for serious right now." I froze, the warm mug trembling in my hand. My chest felt instantly hollowed out. Everything I had banked on with us, the happiness, the future, the easy rhythm of our life just imploded. One sentence, delivered in a quiet, measured tone, carried a weight I didn't know how to catch. I tried to keep it together, but my voice wavered. What does that mean? "I thought we were good," she sighed, that familiar, heavy sigh. It was a sound like a clock hand, ticking off the distance between us. "You know, I just need time. We can't rush this," Emily replied, her voice gentle, but final. I paced my living room, looking out the window. The high-rise buildings across the street reflected the golden light, but in my eyes, the world was blurring. The apartment was silent, save for the drip of the coffee maker and the loud, frantic beat of my own heart. Time. How much time? I wondered. A week, a month, or never. Emily knew I was spiraling. She gave a little, soft tap on the phone, a small, digital attempt to comfort me. But her tone remained serious. "Michael, I need some space to think about everything. We need to figure out what we both really want." I sank onto the sofa, my gaze drifting over the apartment. The photos of us, the movie tickets, the small memories lined up on the shelf, they suddenly felt alien. There was a raw emptiness in my ribcage, like a part of myself had been pulled out and left a cold void behind. I wanted to tell her I understood, that I would wait, but there was a part of me screaming, "Why now? Why can't we figure it out together?" Emily was silent for a moment, then spoke softly. "Don't worry, Michael. I still care about you, but I need to ask myself some hard questions before we take another step." I set the phone down and sat perfectly still on the couch, my hand gripping the small ring box I had meant to buy her next week. Every detail, every inside joke, every quiet moment between us, it all flashed by like a slow-motion movie reel. I remembered last Friday, walking through Riverside Park. Emily was laughing, her hair catching the wind, and I had thought I was too happy for anything to break. Now, just a few sentences later, that certainty had dissolved. A strange fear welled up, a fear of losing her, of the distance between us widening until I couldn't cross it. But I also knew I couldn't force Emily to stay. I had to learn patience, even when my heart was screaming. The apartment remained silent, only the clock ticking and the soft, buttery sunlight spilling onto the hardwood floor. I took a deep breath, telling myself this was only the start, the beginning of the trials, the doubts, and the decisions we both had to face. I stood up, walking slowly around the room, trying to resequence my thoughts. Part of me wanted to call Emily back immediately, but logic told me to wait. I needed to see this clearly, to understand myself, and to understand her that morning. I realized one thing: our relationship wouldn't be the same, and from this moment, everything was going to change: the way we looked at each other, the way we talked, and even the way we loved. I sat motionless on the sofa after that morning call. The sunlight, now high enough to cast defined bars across the hardwood floor, couldn't warm the cold dread settling in my gut. My coffee grew cold on the table as a nameless, heavy feeling took root inside me. I picked up my phone, typed out a message to Emily, and deleted it just as quickly. Every word I wrote felt like twisting the knife, as if acknowledging the distance would make it irreparably worse. The entire morning evaporated in silence. I wandered the apartment, staring at the pictures on the wall, the small shrine of memories on the bookshelf, movie stubs, handwritten notes, old birthday cards. Everything that had once spelled happiness now just screamed alienation. A snapshot of us laughing in Riverside Park, the scene of last week's easy join, now filled me with an unbearable sense of loss and helplessness. By lunchtime, I couldn't stand it anymore and called her, needing to hear her voice, just to confirm she still cared. She answered, her tone soft, but lacking the usual ease. I noticed the slight hesitation in her speech, those small pauses that hadn't been there before. "Hey Michael, I'm fine, I need space," Emily said, then stopped, clearly weighing her next words. I took a deep breath, trying to ground myself. "I get it, but can you tell me what you're feeling? I just need to know we're not drifting too far apart." She sighed, a slight tremor in her voice. "You know how I feel about you, but I need to figure things out for myself before we move forward. I'm just not ready for that next level. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. I understood the words, but a deep sense of unease was coiling in my chest, making every minute stretch into an hour. I kept asking myself, is this just a temporary pause, or is this the first sign of something permanent? That afternoon, I found myself driving toward Riverside Storage Unit number 247, the place where we'd stashed some of our shared mementos. I wanted to look at our history, to touch those small relics as if they held an answer. When I pulled up the heavy metal door, the light streamed in, illuminating the boxes of old albums, pictures, journals. Everything was a sharp, painful reminder of Emily and the good days. But even surrounded by those memories, I felt an invisible wall. I reorganized the boxes, running my fingers over the pictures, trying to find some temporary peace. Yet, underneath the surface, the worry persisted. Was Emily's heart changing, or was she truly just asking for a breather? On the drive back, the familiar sights of New York, the skyscrapers, the green stretch of Riverside Park, the street-side coffee shops all felt strange and distorted. I couldn't stop thinking about a few strange texts from her friends I'd brushed off, or those instances of emotional withdrawal I hadn't noticed then. They all felt like a chain of clues now, signals that our relationship was facing its biggest test yet. When I got back to the apartment, my phone buzzed repeatedly. A text from Emily. Michael, can you give me a few days? I really need this time. I stared at the screen, feeling both a hollow relief and a profound emptiness. Relief, because at least she was communicating. Empty because I finally had to accept that nothing would be the same. That evening, I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker. Everything out there looked calm, but inside, a tide of anxiety was rising. I recalled every small detail I'd previously ignored. How Emily had often steered clear of talks about the long-term future. How she dodged serious commitment. I'd told myself she was just busy, but now, I realized there were signs of unreadiness, maybe even apprehension. I watched the streetlights reflect on the hardwood floor, telling myself to practice patience, but deep down, a part of me was screaming, unwilling to lose Emily, the woman I had loved and trusted for nearly a year. The next morning, I decided I wouldn't push, but I also couldn't just sit and wait. I needed to act, but how could I make the right move while preserving the trust between us? I knew my next step would define the future of our relationship, and I couldn't let it drift away in confusion anymore. The following day, the waiting became unbearable. Part of me screamed to text, to call, to bombard her. But logic insisted. I needed to see her face to face to understand the depth of this. I drove straight to the Riverside Cafe, a small, classic spot right off the park with huge glass windows overlooking the trees. The afternoon light spilled through the glass, attempting to create a sense of calm, but my stomach was tied in knots. I chose a table near the window, my hands shaky as I placed my phone down, my eyes fixed on the street. I kept wondering how Emily would walk in, if that familiar, easy smile would still be there. And then, she appeared, her brown hair loose, a charcoal gray jacket, her steps slow, but her eyes catching mine, and the breath hitched in my throat. She saw me, offered a faint, small smile, but it lacked its usual luminescence. Michael. Her voice was quiet, a little frayed. I took a deep, deliberate breath, forcing composure. Emily, we need to talk. I need to understand everything. We sat down. The cafe was quiet, soft jazz was playing, and the scent of strong coffee hung in the air, but all I could hear was the frantic drumming of my own heart. I looked at Emily and recognized the awkwardness in her eyes, a tangible part of the distance she had maintained over the phone. I really didn't want to disappoint you, she said, her hands trembling slightly as she fidgeted with the rim of her coffee cup. I need time to think about myself and about us. I inhaled sharply, fighting to keep my emotions level. You know, every day that goes by without an answer from you feels like I'm walking in the dark. I don't know what to do, so I needed to see you to figure it out. Emily went silent, staring out the window. In that suspended moment, everything froze. I realized my anxiety wasn't manufactured, it was real, and she was wrestling with something profound, too. I continued, my voice low and earnest. I don't want to pressure you, but I need clarity. If you need time, I can wait, but I need to know for sure that I still matter to you. She finally met my eyes, a shimmer of tears catching the sunlight from the window. Michael, I still care about you, but I'm terrified that if we rush the next step, I'll hurt both of us. I reached out and took her hand, feeling the fragile warmth. Emily, I don't want to lose you. I want to work through this with you, however slow, however difficult. A few silent seconds passed. She gave a small nod, and I felt an invisible tether reconnect between us. I was allowing myself a sliver of relief. But then, Emily's gaze darted to the window again, her eyes suddenly wide with alarm. I followed her line of sight and saw a man standing across the street, looking directly into the cafe, who then quickly pulled his collar up and retreated. My pulse spiked. A sudden, cold certainty washed over me. Emily was hiding something. She sighed, as if reading my mind. Don't worry, Michael. It's not what you think. But the suspicion ignited in my chest. Why the sudden alertness? Who was she worried about seeing her here? And why did I feel completely outside a secret she was obviously keeping? We continued talking, but every word now had an undercurrent of tension. Emily managed a light laugh, trying to ease the atmosphere. Yet I noticed the subtle physical distance, the way she pulled her hand back to rest on the table, the rhythmic tapping of her fingers on the cup, the few quick glances at her watch. I tried to ignore it, but my eyes tracked her every subtle movement. Each small gesture fueled my worry and curiosity. I realized this meeting wasn't just about talking. It was a test of my faith and my patience. We started reminiscing about old times, the walks in Riverside Park, the cozy movie nights, the shared morning coffees. I tried to recreate that familiar warmth, but the tension was winning. Emily would fall silent intermittently, looking out the window, as if fighting an internal battle. Then, she uttered a sentence that made my heart seize up. Michael, there's something you don't know. I met someone last week. My world tilted. A surge of raw emotion hit me. Part of me wanted to yell, to demand, who, why, what the hell happened? But sanity prevailed. I had to hear the rest of it before I reacted. She looked down at the table, avoiding my gaze. Please don't misunderstand. It wasn't serious, but I don't know how to explain to you that I still care about you. I gripped her hand again, feeling the heat and the slight trembling. Emily, I want us to get through this. No matter how difficult, no matter the conflict, I want to be with you. But you have to be honest with me. She remained silent, only looking at me with intensely conflicted eyes. The cafe was quiet, the jazz echoing faintly, amplifying the sharp tension between us. Everything from the afternoon light, the coffee aroma, to every minute of detail of Emily's demeanor suddenly felt monumental, underscoring the fragility of our relationship. I knew that from this moment, nothing would be simple anymore. This meeting had alleviated some fear, but it had introduced new, darker doubts and revealed secrets. And I had to brace myself for the truth, even if that truth might change the entire future of our lives forever. The afternoon sun streamed through the glass, illuminating Emily's face, but the light was not enough to soothe the emotional storm building inside me. I realized that this story had just begun, and the coming days would be fraught with challenges, escalating tension, and secrets that could potentially shatter everything I believed in. The next day, I couldn't shake the persistent dread. Morning light filtered weakly through my apartment blinds, but inside, everything felt murky and undefined. I reread Emily's texts, every line a potential clue I felt compelled to decipher. Finally, I decided I had to see her again, but on her turf, her small, cozy Upper West Side apartment, where we'd spent so many late nights mapping out our future. When I knocked, she opened the door, clearly startled, but unable to hide the tension tightening her jaw. Michael, why are you here so early? She asked, her voice thin. I couldn't wait any longer. We need to talk this through. Clearly, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady, but feeling the tremor in my hands. Emily invited me in. Her apartment was small and warm, but the atmosphere was eerily quiet. We sat on the couch, the sunlight streaming through the windows, casting long shadows on the wood floor. I looked at Emily easily, picking up on the signs of her anxiety, the way she twisted her sleeve, the overemphasis on certain words, the quick, nervous glances at her phone. I don't want you to be mad or misunderstand, she said, her voice trembling. Last week, I ran into an old friend. He's just a friend, but maybe the way I handled it made you think the wrong thing. I frowned, my heart rate accelerating. Emily, I don't know what to believe. Why didn't you just tell me? Why let me worry like this all week? She lowered her head, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. I was afraid if I told you, you'd think badly of me. I don't want to lose you. But I can't keep this a secret anymore either. I took a long, stabilizing breath. Emily, I don't care about your past. I just need truth and trust. If you hide things from me, I will always doubt, and we won't get anywhere. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed and pleading. I am truly sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I haven't been ready to face my own feelings. I took her hands, feeling their desperate, cold warmth. Emily, I understand. I can wait, but I need you to fight this with me. We can't move forward if one of us is constantly scared or holding back. A moment of silence passed, but inside me, the emotional tide was still high. I glanced around her apartment, noticing old photos of us, small, precious memories that now felt impossibly fragile. I realized our love was still present, but it was thinner, more exposed than ever before. Emily sighed, managing a slight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Michael, can you trust me? I'll try my hardest not to let you down, but I need time. I nodded. I trust you, but you have to trust me too. We'll take this one step at a time, however slow, however hard. I'm not leaving. But right at that moment, Emily's phone vibrated violently. She glanced down quickly, her expression instantly shifting. A foreign text message flashed across the screen. Emily, is he there today? My eyes were on her, demanding an answer. Emily went silent, her lips barely moving. Michael, you don't understand. This is just a concerned friend. I'll explain later. A new, deeper anxiety seized me. It wasn't just doubt or uneasiness anymore. It was the sharp realization that there was something much bigger I didn't know. A simmering secret that threatened the entire foundation of our relationship. The fragile peace we had just achieved was instantly shattered. I knew that from now on, nothing would be simple. This meeting had cleared up one fear, only to introduce a stack of new doubts, new secrets I had to steel myself to confront. Emily looked at me, her eyes tearing up, and whispered, Michael, sometimes I'm afraid of myself, afraid of losing you, afraid of us not being what we used to be. I held her hands tighter, a sudden resolve filling me. Emily, we will get through this, together. I'm not letting go, no matter what happens. The afternoon light streamed through the window, illuminating the small room. But it wasn't enough to soothe the emotional storm inside me. I knew that this story was only beginning and the coming days would be fraught with tension, revelations, and secrets that could forever alter the course of our lives. The next day I couldn't hold on to my composure any longer. Every quiet moment was invaded by the image of that strange man outside the cafe. I decided I had to go to Riverside Park, our spot, the scene of so many perfect dates, and demand the truth. I knew if I didn't confront the issue face to face, the doubt would completely demolish us. When I arrived, I saw Emily standing by the water's edge, the wind whipping her brown hair around her face. She was staring out at the river, her eyes distant and vacant. I walked up to her, my voice trembling slightly. Emily, we need to be honest with each other. I can't live in this limbo of suspicion anymore. She turned, her eyes hesitant. Michael, you'll understand, but this isn't easy to talk about. I took her hands in mine. Emily, I can handle anything, but it has to be the truth. I need the whole truth. She sighed, and finally, it spilled out. Michael, the man that was my cousin, he's been helping me with something big, something I couldn't tell you before, because I was terrified you'd worry and get the wrong idea. My heart hammered, a mix of relief and utter confusion. Her cousin, what big thing? Why hide this for so long? Emily looked down, her voice barely a whisper. Michael, a few weeks ago, I found out something about my family, a secret, involving an inheritance and some legal assets I had to settle quietly. He's the only family member I could turn to for help. I didn't want you to think I was hiding money or being secretive, so I kept it locked down. A wave of emotions crashed over me, anger, confusion, then profound relief that I finally understood the why. But simultaneously, I felt hurt. Emily had hidden a massive, life-altering part of her world, forcing me into days of debilitating doubt and heartache. I took a deep breath, fighting to keep my voice even. Emily, I understand your reasons, but you have to know that shutting me out makes me feel like I'm external to your life. I don't want to doubt you, but you leave me no choice when you keep secrets. Emily nodded slowly, tears welling up. I'm sorry. I won't hide anything from you again. I promise. I was afraid of losing you if you misunderstood. I squeezed her hand gently. Emily, I'm not leaving you. You just have to trust me as much as I trust you. We'll get through this, together. For a split second, all the tension seemed to dissipate, but then, my eyes landed on a stark white envelope resting on the bench near the river. It didn't belong to me, and it definitely didn't belong to Emily. She noticed my gaze and quickly snatched the envelope away. Michael, no, you shouldn't look at this, she said, her voice dropping. But curiosity and instinct wouldn't let me back down. I stepped closer, looking at the envelope. Inside I could glimpse a letter and several photographs, all related to another man, one who seemed to have been a long-standing, quiet admirer of Emily's, and whose existence she had definitely not disclosed. My heart pounded, shock and disbelief warring inside me. Part of me wanted to demand an answer right away, but another part was terrified of the truth. Emily looked at me, her eyes desperate, yet resolute. Michael, you have to trust me. Everything that's happened, it's because I'm trying to protect us. Just let me explain. I took a shaky breath, ready to listen, but deep down, I knew everything was about to change. The secrets, the misunderstandings, and the raw, unacknowledged emotions were about to erupt, challenging the relationship I had once believed was unbreakable. The sunset cast an orange glow over the water, reflecting in Emily's eyes. It was both warm and chilling, reminding me that love sometimes requires surviving even the biggest secrets to survive at all, and I knew the decision to stay or walk away would be determined in the next few crucial moments. That evening, Riverside Park was steeped in the soft ambient glow of the city lamps, reflecting on the water like scattered pieces of shimmering glass. Emily and I sat on the wooden bench, not speaking, only listening to the wind sighing through the trees. The space was quiet, but my mind was a chaotic tangle. The images from the envelope I'd glimpsed, the photos, and the letter still flashed through my consciousness, each detail sending a fresh stab of pain and confusion through me. Emily took a deep, shaky breath. Michael, please believe me. All of this was just to protect us. You have to let me explain the whole truth. I turned to her, my eyes heavy with doubt. Emily, I want to believe you, but I don't know where to start. I saw the envelope, the pictures. I don't understand any of it. Why did you hide this for so long? She lowered her head, tears catching the lamplight. I was afraid you'd misunderstand, afraid of losing you. That man, he is an old friend, and he helped me sort out a critical family issue, a situation that, if you had known earlier, would have caused you immense worry and suspicion. I inhaled sharply, wrestling my emotions into check. Emily, I don't care about the history of friends. I need trust and honesty. When you hide things, I will always doubt. And now, seeing that envelope, I feel completely shut out of the most important parts of your life. Emily placed her hand on mine, her touch trembling. Michael, I know, I was wrong. I won't hide anything from you again. I promise. I didn't want to hurt you, and I wasn't ready to face everything myself. I squeezed her hand, feeling the trembling warmth. Emily, I want to get through this with you. Whatever the difficulty, whatever the conflict, I'm right here. But you have to trust me, too. You can't carry every secret alone. A few seconds of silence stretched between us. But inside, a torrent of emotion continued: anger, fear, confusion, and a flicker of relief, finally understanding the motive. It all mixed together, making it hard to breathe. I realized our relationship was far more fragile than I had believed, and the truth was only just starting to surface. Emily looked at me, her eyes glistening, and whispered, Michael, sometimes I'm afraid of myself, afraid of losing you, afraid of us not being what we were. But please trust me, I want us to overcome this together. I looked straight into her eyes, my voice serious, yet full of resolve. Emily, I trust you. But from now on, you have to let me in on everything. We will face this together, no matter how painful the truth might be. In that moment, the yellow lamplight illuminated her face, creating delicate, luminous streaks. I understood that love sometimes demands weathering the biggest storms and challenges to become truly resilient. But these very challenges would reveal whether she genuinely wanted me by her side. Emily offered a faint, tearful smile. I thank you for understanding. I will try my hardest not to let you down. I won't hide anything from you again. I squeezed her hand one last time, feeling her tremor a sign both of her fragility and her genuine commitment. But deep down, I knew that the remaining secrets, the unresolved misunderstandings, would continue to test us. That evening, Riverside Park was quiet, but inside me, every emotion, tension, anxiety, anger, love, and hope was a simmering storm. I knew this story wasn't over, and what would happen next, only time would tell. The yellow light reflected on the water, mirroring Emily's eyes. It was both warm and cold, a stark reminder that love sometimes requires facing the biggest secrets to survive, and I knew the decision to move forward or walk away would be determined in the moments yet to come. We sat there a long time, the park folding its night around us like a soft, careful hand. The city noises had retreated to a distant murmur. Only the river and the warm hum of the lamps kept vigil. I could feel Emily's heartbeat under my fingers, a fragile drum that matched the rhythm of my own doubts and hopes. Show me, I said finally, not with accusation now but with an invitation. My voice was low. The words seemed to hang in the air between us like a fragile bridge. Emily's hand tightened for a second. Then she reached into her bag. Her fingers emerged with the envelope worn at the edges. The paper creased where anxiety had folded it 100 times. She didn't pull it away. Instead, she handed it to me, palms open, as if laying her conscience into my lap. I took it. The weight of those photos and that letter surprised me, not heavy, but dense with consequence. For a moment I didn't open it. I looked at Emily instead, at the way her throat moved when she swallowed, at the small tremor in her hands, at the honest, exhausted plea in her eyes. "We'll read it together," I said. Every line. She nodded, relief and fear mingling in a single, unmistakable expression. We turned the envelope between us under the yellow lamp, and when we opened it, the paper unfolded like a private map of someone else's history, painful and necessary. The photos were not what my mind had filled in during those obsessive hours of imagining. There were no scandalous betrayals, no neat dramatic evidence that would sever us in one cruel pull. Instead, there were images of Emily with a man whose face was lined with age and tiredness, a hospital bed in soft focus, a file stamped with dates, letters written in a hand that shook. The letter, when I read it aloud, spoke of debts repaid in ways that carried shame, of favors exchanged under the pressure of family survival, of choices made in panic and secrecy to keep someone from falling apart. As the sentences formed in the quiet between us, understanding softened the edges of my anger. Not that everything was excused. Secrecy had its cost, but motives emerged that were messy and human rather than malicious. Emily's explanations, halting, honest, filled the spaces the photos left behind. She told me about nights spent pleading on behalf of a father too proud to ask, about loans taken as lifelines, about the shame of admitting you need help. She spoke of guilt, of a misbegotten plan to shield me from worry that had instead built a wall between us. I listened, and with each detail my chest unclenched a little more. Trust, I realized, was not an instant repair. It was a slow, repetitive choosing. But as she spoke and I listened, we both chose again. When the last line of the letter fell silent, I folded it back into the envelope and slid it into my jacket pocket. No grand gesture, just a small, practical act. "We'll deal with it," I told her. "Together. You won't have to carry it alone anymore." Emily's shoulders sagged as if a great weight had been set down. Tears gathered again, but these were different, less of the frightened sort, more like the relief that follows confession. She laughed once, a short, incredulous sound. "I was so stupid to think I could protect you by hiding things," she said. "I forgot that protecting someone means including them." We walked slowly along the riverside, shoes whispering on the path. The lamplight pooled on the water like scattered coins. Our reflections moved closer and further as we passed. We did not pretend everything was solved. There would be conversations to have, calls to make, promises to keep, perhaps even apologies that were owed to others. There would be days when the memory of the envelope would prick at doubts. But the direction had changed. The secrecy that once pushed us apart had been peeled back. What remained was a tender, fragile truth and the work of rebuilding. By the time we reached the small bridge that arched over the stream, Emily paused and turned to me. "Will you?" she started, then steadied herself. "Will you stay?" I took her hands in mine, feeling the faint cold of the night and the steady warmth of her palms. "I will stay," I said, "but not because it's easy. I'll stay because I choose you, and because I believe we can be stronger for what we survived." She let out a breath that sounded like forgiveness. We stood there for a long while, two silhouettes, framed by light, letting the river carry away the worst of the night and keeping the rest as something that bound us, instead of broke us. Later, at home, we made small pacts, transparency about money, about friends, about things that might seem insignificant but could become chasms if left unattended. We set a time to call the people involved, to make amends where necessary. We promised to speak before assuming, to ask before deciding, to bring each other into the messy middle of life. It would not be instant redemption. Trust would be rebuilt in tiny increments, morning texts that became habit, late-night conversations that slowly replaced secrecy, ordinary, repeatable acts that became proof. As we finally turned off the lamp in our living room and sat in the hush that follows truth-telling, Emily leaned into me. The rhythm of her breathing, slow and steady. I let myself believe carefully that this could be a new beginning. Outside, Riverside Park slept under its lamps, the river steady and indifferent, reflecting the city's glow. Inside our apartment, two people who had almost lost each other chose to try again, not because the past had vanished, but because they had decided that the future was worth the effort. The yellow light that had once felt both warm and cold now seemed to hold a different tone, soft, patient, and honest. We didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time since the envelope appeared, I felt a direction forward, together.